And good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Sunday brunch. We have some special guests with us. Of course, we have Marina Purkiss and we have Rob from Truth to Power, and once again, my great host, Political Axe. I think we'll start. Everyone, welcome back to. We're going to see a bit of feedback there. Okay. Let's start off with Marina. Marina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll speak to Rob as well. So, Marina, go ahead.
Hello all, thanks for having me. So I am Marina Purkiss. I am strangely known as a political commentator these days because of a sort of whirlwind growth on Twitter within the last 16 months.
Oh, we're having some audio problems.
Where I was basically sharing my amusing musings, if you like, about what the hell is going on with the Tory government, and seem to get quite a lot of traction. So a lot of followers that way, a few appearances on Jeremy Vine and podcasts and so on and so forth. But my day job is actually so I work for a wonderful US tech firm doing their marketing. But that's me.
Awesome. And Rob, what about yourself? Tell us all about you.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's good to be back again for the second time. My day job, to use Marina's phrase, is I run an actors agency. And I was really hit by Brexit. We used to have a lot of people employed on the continent and in Hollywood productions in Eastern Europe. It's all gone. It really whacked my business. And I was so angry. About a year ago, I started a YouTube channel, Truth to Power. We've had well over 1 million views now. So it's sort of really sort of done a lot better than I ever hoped, ever dreamed. And yeah, that's really me. That's where I am. I'm very angry. I comment a lot about Brexit, but also government corruption. Those are my two real things that trigger me, to be honest.
yeah, they pretty much trigger most people.
Yeah.
Lies, deceit, backstabbing. Yeah, they're pretty much, corruption, incompetence. I mean, the list goes on, doesn't it?
That sort of stuff. Yeah, that's the theme. Yeah.
So I think
having you back.
Great to have both of you on today.
That's a positive Sunday morning. sorry, Max.
Okay. No, so I think we can jump in with some of the topics we'd like to talk about. Something that dropped this morning, I think it was this morning or last night, was Angela Rayner and Basic Instinct. Does anyone, Marina, do you want to make a comment about that? So
this is the Mail on the Mail on Sunday have decided to publish this article. I can't think why, saying that Angela Rayner, by crossing and uncrossing her legs while sitting on the front bench in Parliament, is actually using that as a tactic to distract our Prime Minister, who is, according to his own colleagues, distracted by this. And they are comparing her to Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct, and there's obviously a very famous part of the film, which I'm sure many people watched on repeat. And so that's the picture. It's Angela Rayner, it's Boris Johnson, it's Sharon Stone, and it's in the Mail on Sunday, and it's an absolute disgrace. I cannot believe this is where we are. But if you remember, Mail on Sunday were the same. I've got to say it now, they're a rag that published the Lexit story with Theresa May and Nicola Sturgeon. Forget Brexit, focus on Lexit. Then I think this was the natural progression in terms of misogynistic stories for them to cover.
Wow. And it's also political desperation. Like at this stage, we need the elections are coming, so we need to. Will this work? Rob, do you have anything to say about that?
What I find fascinating with this story, Max, is it was a few years ago now, but do you all remember the comments that Boris Johnson used to make about Muslim women wearing the burqa, etc., looking like letterboxes? So he seemed to be a big advocate of women not covering up, and now we've got the opposite story, which is he seems to think that women should be covering up and not showing their legs. I mean, he can't have it both.
I think he'd probably enjoy them to not be covered up, but he just can't, be trusted not to be distracted.
Right.
Which, by the way, when the line being pumped out is, we can't change PM now, we're in the middle of the war, yet PM distracted by limbs is something we're also having to be, being told is somewhat of a strange angle from the Mail on Sunday.
It's going to be interesting to see if that comes up in PMQs again. And it was also, I think, Max, you were mentioning just before we came on about how he was making weird faces at what we believe is Angela Rayner. like as if he was like trying to do weird faces to flirt at her. I mean, is this all sort of like coming back to the fact that he's privately educated, went to Eton, no girls around, and just can't control himself? Or, I mean, I don't want to besmirch too many people who've gone to private education, but I mean, seriously, like, what is his malfunction? Why is he malfunctioning like this all the time? And who thought it was a good idea to release a story like this? Like, why? Like, this has obviously gone to the editors. It's front page, isn't it?
I do wonder if, I don't know if it's front page, but it might be within the early pages. But I think is this another, and I hate saying this because I get told this all the time, oh, it's a dead cat story. But is it just to detract from another like pile of shit story? By the way, have you seen the clip? It was doing the rounds a while ago from a few years back where Johnson himself admitted that if he was ever in power, his approach would be to use Steve's Bannon term, flood the zone with shit, to, as he put it, drop so many depth charges while everyone else was focusing, he would just carry on through it. Just put so much stuff out there that we as the public and the media literally don't know where to turn. We're focusing on so many different stories that he can just carry on and do whatever he needs to do.
I think there's an element of that, to be honest. I think that definitely comes through. Like, it's just one week. It's it's like Trump. He's like the deformed cousin of Donald Trump, which is hard to imagine because Donald Trump is pretty horrible. And he's doing very similar tactics. It's populist. It's throwing different problems every single week, so you can't cope with what happened the week before, and nonetheless process what's in front of you. But I mean, it's just creating this level of stress that's unreal. And it's interesting to say, like, if I was on the front bench and I've got Scottish heritage, I'd definitely be wearing a kilt. I'd make sure it's short and up the knee, and I'd definitely be uncrossing and crossing my legs in front of him. I think that would be quite a sight.
That will do it.
And everyone goes silent.
Yeah, so we can move swiftly on to our next topic. This week, Jacob Rees-Mogg was convincing people that it would be a good idea to come back to the office. And his way of encouraging people was to leave notes on their desks in a very passive-aggressive way. What's your take on that, guys?
What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, well, his job title is, amongst other things, I think it's Minister of Brexit Opportunities and Government Efficiency, isn't it? I think. The Office of National Statistics tell us that productivity actually rises when people work from home. So he seems to be doing the opposite of his job because the efficiency is working from home. But what I really wanted to make the point is that the main part of his job title is Minister for Brexit Opportunities. Now, he seems to have a lot of time on his hands to be going around posting these glorified post-it notes on civil servants' desks. And I just think maybe if there were a few more Brexit opportunities to actually keep him busy, he wouldn't be up to this crap, to be honest.
What is that to the Sun readers? Do you not remember when he had an article in the Sun where he was asking the Sun readers, right, I'm in this role now.
Yeah.
What do you want me to look at? What problems would you like me to solve?
So come on, Sun readers.
He's got nothing.
Yeah, so come on, Sun readers, give Mr. Rees-Mogg some opportunities that he can look at to keep him away from these spooky, weird post-it notes that he's leaving behind. It's just creepy.
But Marina, can you describe some of his responsibilities that appear on his profile?
Yeah, this is interesting one. So his job spec, which is
I think Alex,
currently live on the .gov.uk website, has a you got me.
Sorry, Alex, do you hear Marina?
Yeah, I think it's just cracking up.
Okay, yes.
Go
again, Marina.
The job spec is live on the .gov.uk website, and underneath the responsibility section is sweet buckle. Literally, there is nothing there.
Excellent.
A swear word of the morning.
But he's outsourced those responsibilities to Sun newspaper readers, so that's okay.
But if there's something really the Express did a story yesterday which I found really funny. Like, if you're ever in need of a laugh, just go and check out the Express politics stories. There's one yesterday which was calling it a masterstroke, a Brexit masterstroke. We're on the brink of a trade revolution to get, tariff-free barriers. Do you know what it is, folks? It is UK have bowed down and have now decided they're going to accept the EU CE mark as a quality assurance mark. But wait for it, UK exporters will have to comply not just with the CE mark, but with the new UK mark as well when they're sending stuff out, which is more cost, more take for UK exporters. And it means that comes into the UK could just be a really shitty, poor quality, dodgy goods, because we don't need them to have that same standard, because we're having our own standard, which, as we know, we just lower. As you mentioned, Rob, before we were chatting, they just lower standards. So keeping to EU standards just means they're there. They're the minimum. We could always have gone above and made things better, but all we're doing with Brexit, or since Brexit, is we're deregulating and we're getting lower and lower and shitter in everything.
Especially the rivers. Yeah.
Rivers, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. We're in a sea of shit.
Yeah.
There you go. That's my first swear word in the morning. I'm looking forward to everyone else joining in. But it is, isn't it? I find it really interesting as well, because it feels like the upper, I don't want to call them the upper echelons, the snooty guys at the top of Brexit seem to be going, it's about deregulation. And everyone else who seemed to be supporting Brexit were like, no, we want to protect our industries, and we want to grow our steel, and we want to improve our farming, and we want higher standards, and we want Britain to be number one. And Boris actually came out and said, it's all about, we're not lowering the standards, it's increasing them and improving them. And of course, now we're just seeing the proof in the pudding. Mm-hmm. And it seems like part of it is also the fact we've put up trade barriers. There was a report done by Byline Times on E. coli levels off the coast of Brighton going through the roof. And that means that E. coli is now not, it doesn't just affect us, it affects our sea life. And I'm looking at this and going, so our environmental standards are dropping. And that's in part because you put up trade barriers, but also because you want to deregulate. I mean, how's this making Britain a better place? I don't see that. I don't see how Brexit's ever going to really achieve that, because you're always going to have the issue of, we can't if we lower our standards, they increase the tariffs. So how do we balance that out? Because if they put the tariffs up, then we can't export our goods, and that means that our economy sinks. I just don't get how you resolve that. I mean,
deregulation sounds wonderful, right? It sounds like we're all going to benefit massively from cost savings. But deregulation only benefits the people at the very, very top of the food chain, the business owners, the people that employ all of the staff, because it means they can deviate from having to pay you sick pay, for example, or maternity pay, or all those sorts of things. It doesn't benefit anyone down here. So the people that go, we don't need all these rules are in place to benefit you, but they've sold it to you as if you're going to benefit. You're not. Do you not remember Jacob Rees-Mogg saying that the cost of food was going to go down, the cost of shoes was going to go down significantly, and he delivers everything with such conviction that you think, my goodness, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then actually everything he says turns out to be bullshit, and guess what, there's absolutely no accountability. Doesn't matter.
I'd just like to ask a question based on what Marina has said there. Why is there this belief, there's this admiration for people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, or people who have gone to Eton? What is the thinking behind that? So even if they say something ridiculous, people will let them off because, they have a posh accent or they went to a private school.
When they say it in Latin, we lose ourselves, which is, oh my God, like, it's Latin, he must know what he's talking about. But also in this country, we believe that a posh accent is a sign of intelligence, and it's not. It's a sign of privilege. Doesn't mean that you can have a posh accent and you can be wonderfully intelligent, or you can have a posh accent and you can be like Tim, nice but dim, that wonderful and accurate character portrayed by Harry Enfield.
How many of you have been on the phone and put up your accent in order to get a little bit further?
Yeah. Yeah,
it doesn't work with the Italians. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
This is really interesting because I think it's wider than accent as well. I'm probably the oldest of this bunch here by a long way, but I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember Margaret Thatcher, how she went from having this really squeaky high voice to this very deep voice. And of course, Liz Truss is now trying to channel her inner Maggie Thatcher by lowering her voice. So I think that there's a lot, but for some reason we put so much trust in the sound and pitch of somebody's voice. I think it's more than just accent, although accent is obviously a big part of it. But have you all heard the new Liz Truss voice? It's a wonder to hear, actually. It's quite incredible.
She should do audiobooks.
She should, yes.
I'd like
Tanya Unchained as an audiobook. Can you imagine?
Can we talk a little bit about Rwanda? What's happening? We were mentioning a little bit before the stream, but is this part of a money-making scam by the Tories or Tory donors? What do you think?
Marina, what do you think?
So I think this has got the potential to be another test and trace, multi-billion-pound scandal, multi-billion-pound transfer of wealth from the taxpayer to already ridiculously wealthy, well-connected individuals to the Tory party. Because just last week, the Tories, with their 80-seat majority, voted through, I'm not sure what it means is that for the next 2 years, Parliament will not be able to scrutinise any of the costs associated with Rwanda. And that £120 million cost that we've been told or we've heard about wasn't for the project as a whole. That was just what's been burnt today on, sending Priti Patel out for negotiations and getting this set up and to where it is now. We are not going to be privy to that knowledge. And just think how much money is going to be spent. And when there is money to be spent, the Tories are very good at funneling it into the pockets of people that they are acquainted with.
It's all about, in any democracy, if you want it to run well, it's about transparency. And the Conservatives are anything but that. They hide absolutely everything. And I know we're talking about Rwanda, and that is important, but it also links back to Morgan working from home. Mm-hmm. There's this element of wanting to keep an eye on you in the workplace. They want everything transparent. It's almost like they don't trust people within the workplace. And yet they don't trust us to know what they're spending our money on.
No, but this is it. When it comes to little people, they are the micromanagers. When it comes to little people, for example, when claiming benefits, you have to submit God knows how much paperwork. You have to be still. I think they wanted you to send a picture of you next to your street name. They want to know the details of your spouse because they take in their or their partner that you live with because they take in their earnings, etc., etc. But when you are, Rishi Sunak's level, when you're Rishi Sunak's wife, the wife's details actually shouldn't be anything to do with the financial considerations taken into account. They're able to have two jobs. Geoffrey Cox can go and do his second job from the Caribbean, but other people, the minions, they have to be at their desk working, given their pound of flesh and monitored.
Yeah, person on their shoulder the entire time because we can't be trusted. And yet that's the biggest irony. We were talking about accents just now. I'm very aware that in the Napoleonics, there was a level of luck looked upon about having an officer that wasn't from the ranks, but an officer that was from heritage. And also, obviously, we can take this all the way back to, in my opinion, as a historian, you can take this all the way back to 1066, where you get a class divide that is created based on French being spoken by the upper echelons, a Latin language versus English, which is by this point also taken on Norwegian elements of language. And you sort of look at the two and you go, right, that's created a really simplistic class divide, which has perpetuated itself all the way to the modern day. And I find that a lot of this stuff just doesn't change. We were talking about Angela Rayner. I was going to make a Fred West comparison. But if you look at the police practices and attitudes towards women there, and you look at the Jack the Ripper case from 1888, almost like 100 years before, and you look at the attitudes of the police to women there, if they're out late at night, they must be up to no good. 1970s, nothing changes. Women out late at night, nothing's changed. And it seems like within our culture, it takes a lot to have anything change on that level, which comes back to you've got this group at the top that think the people at the bottom, the little people, have to obey them, despite whatever moral attitude they have, despite whatever rules they break, they're in charge, and you listen and obey, and you are tracked.
This is systemic in our monarchy, yeah. Unfortunately. This is exactly what the monarchy is designed to instill.
Yeah. Haughty,
It's division, it's classism, it's like all of these things. They're up there, that's their position, and they rule over us. And that's the whole of the aristocracy is based on this. And with that, it just instills like they're better than us.
Yeah, very
we're used to being differential in this country.
And this, of course, has been reflected in the Tory tax policy since Johnson came into office, with this hike in national insurance rates, which affects the workers basically, and yet we're not taxing those multi-billion-pound windfall profits of the fuel companies, the fossil fuel companies. You know, the big guys get away with the tax. It's the little guys.
The big guy actually said out loud, "We've got more cash than we can spend.
Yeah,
and we know what to do."
Yeah, the BP guy. Yeah.
Guys, I just want to read out some super chats we received. One is from Christopher. Love you, Maria. Thanks for that, Christopher. We also number 3 who says Julian Assange may be extradited soon. Does anyone want to say something about that? I haven't been following that story, so I don't know what's happening with that. Alex, do you know?
I'm not close to that.
No, I haven't been following it, unfortunately. We could always keep it for next week, though.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that super chat. I want to move on to Brexit, of course. Brexit benefits. We've been hearing a lot in the news, especially from the Express, about some Brexit benefits. Alex, do you have any Brexit benefits you'd like to highlight?
There was one that Mod brought up, I think on LBC, which was about how he had obviously said to people, I think, Marina, you brought this up earlier, about people writing in to him from the Sun. I mean, 7 years after the vote, and obviously you have 2 years of campaigning, you could argue before that, or a year's campaigning, so it's 8 years, and he still doesn't have any ideas as to what to do with Brexit and how to get the best benefits. So he threw that out. And one of them was, I believe it was a guy who owns a bookstore that said one of the things they could get rid of was having to check the ladder for safety every week. That was the biggest Brexit benefit that he could read out. Yeah. I mean, James O'Brien's come up with a few, which were a bit of a. There was 3 guests that he had on. One was about bats and how the EU had a minimum regulation to protect bats from going into your roof because they're endangered species and that you shouldn't remove them. So one caller said that it was about bats. Another one rang in about washing machines, which was like, we should be able to lower the standards of the washing machines so they're not so environmentally friendly. What he didn't realize is if you lower the standards, you increase the tariffs, so we can't then export into Europe. And then the third caller, are you all aware of the Workers' Directive?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you're all... Max, you're protected by this, unlike the rest of us. You're not meant to be able to work over 40 hours unless you give consent.
Unless it's consent. Yeah,
unless you give consent. And a lot of businesses, I'm choosing words very carefully here, a lot of businesses will just put that into the contract and say that you'll give that up, which I don't think they should be allowed to do. I think that shouldn't be in the first contract. Maybe after 6 months you could then negotiate on that. That's a personal thing. There was a caller who rang up who demanded that initially that 40-hour worker directive was inhibiting work. But then it transpired what she really wanted is to get workers into the workplace to work over that 40-hour period.
Because she was retired, as far as I know.
Yeah, she was retired as well.
Sounds nice.
So she wants to take away rights of other people that are not going to affect her because she was retired. So she wants she wants people to be forced to work up to 100 hours a week. But not her because she's retired.
So those are my Brexit benefits.
There was a story in the Express yesterday, I think it was, where the headline was "Bitter Remoaners complain about Brexit benefits to the Netherlands." And I did a video on it this morning, but it should drop probably later this afternoon. But it's basically the Netherlands, the port of Rotterdam are expanding their warehouse area. up to 4 million square meters, 400 hectares, because of Brexit, because a lot of UK companies have shifted operations to the Netherlands, for example. But the Express is not presenting it as a Brexit benefit, but as Romoners being bitter. So it's beyond it's we're at the stage. It's at the stage where we can't present it as a benefit for the Netherlands, because that would make Brexit look bad. But then we can't say Brexiteers are happy, because then that's not true. So our only possible solution to sell this story is that Romoners are bitter that Netherlands is benefiting from Brexit. But everyone should be bitter that the Netherlands, not the UK, is benefiting from Brexit. But it just doesn't make any sense at this stage. So, and I really love to know who writes these articles. Is it all a joke? Is it an attempt to wind people up?
These are so Max. These are it's a real shame. And someone did a piece on this. I can't remember where from, but basically, the Express writers, if you look at where they come from, they are essentially failed journalists. They end up in that role because there is no other paper that will take them. Their writing style is awful. There are always so many typos, and to be honest, you've got to be really low into credibility and morality, and just
Are you suggesting Ben Habib and Sammy Wilson of the DUP are somewhat not not wonderful writers?
Yes.
That cleared that up.
What's the other, the very topical Brexit benefit with Boris Johnson over in India at the moment is the fact that, we're going to be able to bring all these skilled workers from India over to take jobs in the UK as a concession to win this trade deal that Johnson's hoping to do, which Modi actually is pouring cold water on at the moment. He's out there associating with basically another autocrat who's trying to undermine democracy in the world's largest democracy, India, a pal of Putin who stayed scrupulously neutral during the Ukraine campaign by Putin. Johnson's over there trying to win favour. And what he's actually offering is the rights of skilled Indian workers to come into the UK economy and take skilled jobs. Years after the Brexit vote, which is a vote for getting rid of unskilled European workers, picking our fruit and looking after our elderly, those people that are voting for Brexit, is this what they wanted, for us to replace unskilled European workers with skilled Indian workers coming and taking the better paid, well-paid jobs, and still the fruit's rotten in the fields? I mean, what's that? Is that a Brexit benefit?
Rob, you just need to, can I direct you again to the Express's on this? Because the comment section is a wonderful indication of what Brexiters who voted for immigration think of this, and they are not happy.
Are they not happy? I've not seen it.
Shocking, actually, that they're not.
Shock. Real shock.
With Indians coming over. What? No one saw that coming.
Is that not what they voted for? Oh, okay.
No.
Angry Gammons?
But they didn't know what they voted for.
I'm sort of looking at it and going, what? Sorry, Marina.
Go on. I was going to say, there's also, I like the fact that we are celebrating the fact that the Portuguese are now allowing people with a British passport to join the queue with the EU passport queue. That's a win, by the way. That's a win. Apparently, Rees-Mogg said the Portuguese have extended their hand of friendship. That's now a win, which is strange, and I do think this is becoming a new British pastime, is celebrating things as achievements, which we had like in full before, but now we're only getting a little bit of. So, I'm going to celebrate my wagon wheel being 12% smaller in size.
But there's also... But just to rain a little bit on the parade there, it's actually, this benefit is also available to people from Australia, Japan, and some other countries. Oh. So they'll actually be able to go through the e-gate as well. So Lord Frost, David Frost was posting this on Twitter about how this is, they're treating us like we're treating them. So in a sense, it's almost like, we're in we're out, but we have the benefits of being in. But then I actually looked at the article, and further down it was like, but it's also available for people from Japan. So it's not even just for the British. But it seems
Wonderful.
I think it's an attempt to deal with the queues at the airports because of COVID, because so many people.
Nothing to do with a Brexit win, exactly, and it will be to benefit the tourists coming into their country and to make it a more pleasant experience. But the other thing that's another Brexit win, apparently it's a master stroke, according to the Express. We're on the brink of a trade revolution by getting around these, tariff barriers, by wait for it, bowing down and finally deciding, yes, the UK will recognise the EU's quality assurance mark, which is the CE mark that you'll see on everything from your fridge freezer to your hairdryer. But all it means is that UK businesses who want to export to the EU will now have to feature the CE mark, so their stuff is recognised in Europe, as well as some crappy made-up, we are British sovereign, UK mark, which they'll also have to comply with, which will probably be lower in standards, but they'll still have to etch that onto their product as well. And then the people coming who want to export from EU into UK, because we're going to have just our own shitty standard, which is going to be sub the CE standard, they can just flood their crappy, low quality, possibly dangerous electrical goods, whatever, into the UK market, so we can buy them all at a top-notch price, I'm sure. And no electric shocks, hopefully, when you use your hairdryers.
But even though that standard is going to be lower, Marina, as you quite rightly say, if you're a Chinese manufacturer looking at a separate quality assurance routine that you've got to go through in order to ship your products to this little island off the coast of Europe, are you really going to bother? I think there's just going to be a lack of products coming in. We're going to suffer in terms of choice of product, the variety of products that are available in the shops, And
that will just push prices up even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because of the
70s again, isn't it? And stagflation. That's what we're heading to.
Yeah.
Because what we've got at the moment, it's pretty good for employment. Again, talking about Smughead earlier, and him putting those nasty little bully notes around the office. There's an element here that I can see going back to the 70s, because the big difference is employment. So a lot of people within the civil service are just going, oh, we'll leave. We'll just go and get a job somewhere else. And there are plenty of jobs available, white collar, blue collar working jobs across the country. So the civil service could just end up, if they've got this policy coming through, being like, right, we'll push off. What I see eventually happening is this will stabilize, and we'll figure out what level our economy's at, and we will not be able to push out of it because we can't get products coming in, but also because we're going to have higher export tariffs that are going to be put on us, or we're going to be spending money on having two emblems that mean the exact same thing. Just to clarify as well, that CE thing, if an EU product needs to come in here, do they just need the CE stamp? They don't need the UK stamp.
And that's my understanding. That's my understanding, yeah.
So they're going to save money. They're going to be cheaper then.
So basically, the EU exporters will have a competitive advantage over the UK businesses.
And we've lost, is anyone aware that we've lost about 30 billion in the first 6 months in tax? Because we're not checking stuff at the ports and we're not actually chasing them. So you're going, wow, there's so much historical equivalency here, but in reverse. One of the reasons that Britain became quite powerful after the Napoleonic Wars and during is because Napoleon put a trade barrier on us and all our products coming in, which meant that we just smuggled it all over the place and we made loads of money and it came into the country. We're doing the exact opposite right now, because if we're allowing lower, easier standards, I think is a better way of describing it, to come in from Europe, and we're not checking their goods coming in, but they're doing the reverse. That means our money is flowing out of the country into Europe. Mm-hmm. And we've got loads of examples of that, because we've got UK workers in Germany. Anyone want to guess what the average wages for the 100,000 UK workers are in Germany at the moment? They've just applied for passports. Anyone want to guess? It's about 2,800 euros a month. So they're top of the top, and they've just drained out of Britain and gone over to Germany and now applying for passports over there. So I'm just looking at this and going, well, we're hemorrhaging money. The money's going to go into Europe. We're not getting that back. And then on top of that, we're also going to have a brain drain. This is economic.
And
economic destruction.
The 40 billion that we've lost in exports since Brexit, since we've Brexited properly, so the transition period fully finished. Think of that 40 billion in exports. Think of all the lost tax that's not going into the treasury as a result of that as well. And then the threats to the NI protocol, by the way, so Jacob Rees-Mogg said in I think it was a select committee last week, the intention was always to rewrite or whatever. He basically saying the intention was always to sign the deal and then just rip it up and recreate it however they wanted. Which, by the way, who does that with treaties? Who does that with contracts? Do you do that with contracts you enter into? So who thought of that?
They were talking about triggering Article 16 again.
Yes, and if they do that, what's going to happen? The EU is going to impose further tariffs on us. And what's that going to do? Drive up the cost of everything again during a cost of living crisis when people are on their knees. I'm starting to see my food shop and everything's gone up. Childcare costs, food shop, petrol, energy, like water, everything's gone up. And me and my husband, we do all right. We're going, we need to look at our finances. We need to just put rein stuff in. How the hell is everyone else going to cope? And then we've got further energy increases coming in October. And then if this Article 16 is triggered, Jesus, we're in a bad way.
Guys, I just want to read out some of the super chats we received. We've got a lot of super chats here. Cthulhu says, "Didn't Brexit give us the aqueduct?" We have Heather. Heather, thanks for that, and thanks to Cthulhu as well. Queen's speech means they can get rid of protocol. Yes, maybe this is part of. We can discuss a little bit of that in a moment. Samsonite Dove, thanks so much for that super chat. They're called FMDs. Fuck me, Doris articles. I don't remember what's that about. Maybe it's the Express. David McGuinness, thanks so much, David, for that super chat. England's Brexit voters know that they have made a mistake, but are sticking their heads in the sand. So things are getting silly down south, especially in politics. David is in Scotland. It's just the way I think there's. Imagine if Nicola Sturgeon was Prime Minister. I think things would be a lot different. Of course, she can't be. And then finally, we have Ethan. Thanks so much. Thoughts on 647 COVID deaths on 647 COVID deaths on Thursday. If we have time, maybe we can just mention something. Yes, it's this whole, and I've mentioned it a few times on Twitter. The whole idea. We have we have Sajid Javid, we have Boris Johnson, we have a number of Tories who are continually of this idea that the pandemic is over, but as you can see here, 647 people died on Thursday.
We were at 50 when dying a day when we went into lockdown. It's nuts.
I've just recovered from COVID myself. I had it about 3 weeks ago, and I'm not being dramatic here. And my wife was panicking. Lucky I pulled through. I was so ill, and when I see Hat Mancock telling us that COVID's over, that we're the first economy to come out of lockdown and the first economy to deal with COVID, it's nonsense. I nearly wasn't here today. It's just like being hit by a truck. It was absolutely horrible. And all this, it's only a mild form. That's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. We're still in the thick of it. Can I just say, sorry, I'm changing the subject slightly, but it's been bugging me since we started this morning because I felt like a bit of a deja vu feeling. And I've suddenly realised what it is. It's like, I feel like in a way I'm on sort of Mock the Week with Max being Dara O'Brien and you, Alex, being the sort of Hugh Dennis character. I don't know whether that leaves me and Marina, but yes.
I'm Googling who Hugh Dennis is.
I'll take that.
Wow. Interesting.
We also have another super chat from Freddie. Thanks so much, Freddie. Unfortunately for Ireland, if Britain thinks it hurts us, for Ireland, if Britain thinks it hurts us, I think talking about Brexit here. Have a good Sunday, guys. I think there's always been this idea that Brexiteers in England, in Great Britain, thought that Brexit would harm Ireland. and it would drive a wedge between Ireland and the European Union, but it's done the absolute opposite. Ireland's power in the European Union has actually increased, I think. It's not something we generally talk much about anyway. Can we move on to...
No, it's working too well. It's the problem. I was just saying, Ireland is showing that it's working too well. It's a test. If you were to do an A/B test of two territories that are very close to each other, and one has still got access to the European Union and is able to trade freely with them, versus the UK, which can't, then you can see it's too direct. It's too easy to go, Jesus, they're flourishing and their recovery since COVID has been X, Y, Z, and us, we're not. It's working too well, which is why they're very keen to rip up the NI protocol and start again, which is going to be nuts. It's like, we're just going to make things worse for Northern Ireland because we need to make us look better.
Yeah. Can I just say as well, I started the show today by saying that my business has really been hit by Brexit. Guess who's picked up all those roles that I used to cast for Hollywood and Eastern Europe and at the English Theatre of Hamburg, English Theatre of Vienna? Guess where they're recruiting those actors, those English-speaking actors from now?
Ireland.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ireland.
Yeah.
Wow. It did seem a bit odd that a lot more businesses didn't relocate into Northern Ireland. I think they have been, but I'm surprised more haven't, because that's just sort of having your cake and eating it in many respects.
I think there's still some concern over the protocol because the politicians are banging on about getting rid of it. I don't think the British government will get rid of it because they haven't at this stage. So, although I think there's still some concern in Northern Ireland in the business community.
It's a funny thing. You hear a lot of everyone going, "Oh, press Article 16." I never really hear anyone then follow that up and go, "Where do we put the border?" And the European Union have been really clear. You bring in chlorinated chicken, you bring in steroid-injected beef, we will put up barriers. We will put in checks. Well, how do we deal with that with Northern Ireland? According to the Good Friday Agreement, something that people should read in politics, they should be knowing that they can't put a border on the land. And then on top of that, the new IRA have come out on TV and said, you put that up, we will blow it up. We will go to war. That is literally what they've said on TV, which is one hell of a statement. So you're like, right, well, it can't go there. So where do you put the checks? And then you get these crazy ideas of like, oh, we'll just do it inside the store. And it's like, well, I thought part of Brexit was to have these strong borders. Now you're saying the borders are inside Marks and Spencer, Sainsbury's. Like, what are they dribbling about? And then, of course, they were trying to put on pressure, going back to refugees, as we were talking about earlier. But obviously, people being sent to Rwanda. But going back to the refugee point, there was pressure trying to be put on Ireland to control refugees coming through Ireland and then just walking over the border into Northern Ireland and then claiming asylum in England. I don't see how they can resolve it. I haven't heard one Brexiteer go, I have the solution. And the solution was meant to be the protocol and having the border in the Irish Sea. I don't see how it ever gets resolved, and it can't. And the more we diverge, the bigger the problem this becomes. And I think our history is just caught up with us and we don't want to accept it.
I just want to read out some more super chats. We have one from David McGuinness. There's a lot to mock each week right now. Chuckle. Yes. We also have one from Far Center Watch. Sent you a quiz link, about COVID, but blocked. I'm not sure. Yes, unfortunately, sending links on the chat. We get a lot of trolls, so we can't post links. You can't post links. Guys, I want to move on to is Boris Johnson a dead man walking? Marina, do you want to start on that?
I sort of wish, but I don't know that I don't know. I think there are too many Tory MPs that owe their livelihoods, their status, their everything to him. If you look at people like Dorries, or like Nadine Dorries, Oliver Dowden, Priti Patel, people that wouldn't get within a sniff's length of these types of roles, they know that. And so they will back him forever until the very last vote that they get. So I worry that he's got too many of these people in his camp that will keep him in power. And at the end of the day, it's all down to Tory MPs, whether he stays in power or not.
Rob?
Pretty much.
Yeah, Marina's just the last point Marina just made there is the important thing. I think that it's down to the Tory MPs whether he stays in power or not. That's the way this so-called democracy of ours is structured, that it comes down to the Tory MPs because they're the only ones that can get rid of him at this stage before a general election. And my big mystery is why they're doing that. I hear what Marina's saying, and I totally agree with her about the sea of mediocrity that surrounds Boris Johnson. He's sort of structured it that there is no obvious replacement. I think that's probably what's protecting his hide. But I still wonder why some of them hitch themselves to the Boris Johnson wagon. I was talking before the show started today about my own constituency MP, Anne-Marie Morris, down here in Teambridge. She's currently, as far as I'm aware, she's still not had the whip restored. Last time I checked, she voted with Labour against the government on adding VAT or taking away the VAT from fuel. I've been in correspondence with her. Can I just read out just a couple of sentences of things she's written to me? This is a woman that's currently...
Read the whole thing if you want. If it,
Well, it goes on. There was a bit of backwards and forwards, but this is the main letter. Bear in mind, this is a woman who's rebelled consistently against the government. And I have to tell you, I mean, I'm non-tribal politically, but I'm very much anti-Tory. Wherever I've been, I've always voted against whoever stood the best chance against the Tories. This is a woman who's a serial offender as far as the Tories are concerned because she votes against the government. She's got a will of her own. And I will say she is the best constituency MP I've ever had. She's actually solved two big problems for my family. So, I've got no axe to grind against her. But let me just read this out, what she said. I basically have been writing to her saying, look, I want to express my anger and my family's anger about the fact that Johnson has just taken a piss with this, breaking the rules that he's been making. She wrote back and said, while I was among the first to call for the Prime Minister's resignation, lodging a letter with the chairman of the 1922 committee, that was in different times. Now we are at war, she says. Now, as I've said to her, did I miss the declaration of war? While prime ministers have been removed and replaced during wartime, that should only be done if, given all the circumstances, it is in our national interest as a country. Blah, 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 blah. When the battle for the heart and soul of Ukraine is lost or won, that is the time to reflect on the right and just response to Partygate, by which time we should be in full possession of the facts. Now, I've pointed out to her that I would expect the war in Ukraine still to be going on in 10 years. And following that logic, she's basically saying that we should cancel all further general elections until such time as the hearts and minds of Ukraine have been won or lost. She is literally saying that.
Nonsense. Also, like, what is it that Johnson is doing that it's so special that can't be continued or by another Tory MP that steps into that position? What is he actually doing? He's supplying arms. Great, continue to do that. It doesn't take a genius. He's doing some photo ops in Kiev when he gets the chance, and he's fucking up a Homes for Ukraine scheme. So what is it that's so difficult to hand the reins over from?
Right.
But also if you look across the water, there's an election taking place in France at the moment. So if they're able to change their president, hopefully they won't.
Macron's been very much involved. He's been on the phone to Putin. He got him on speed dial by all accounts. But it doesn't mean you can't. I just don't understand this. It's a really crappy narrative, and people are buying it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, we tend to do better when we sack our prime ministers if we're in war.
Yes. Yeah.
It actually works out really well for us to sack.
Well,
We've got a huge precedent about that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like
Yeah.
Asquith was in charge, got the sack. Lloyd George came in, and we were at war with Afghanistan and Iraq. So we got rid of Blair over his lies. May was sacked as well. Gordon Brown obviously lost the election, but we still had an election.
Boris Johnson was a facilitator of Putin's regime. He took his money. He's probably compromised from some very dodgy compromat from Lebedev's parties in Perugia. So, like,
you should watch.
He's a liability.
Marina, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check out the film I've done on it, because I think we've been at war for about 8 years, and even under UN definitions. So cyber warfare under the UN convention says that, under NATO conventions, says that if you're attacked through cyber warfare, that is a declaration of war. End of. And we have been, and we've got evidence of it dating all the way back to Brexit, maybe even as far back as 2014. And nothing's happened. So it's like, well, we've already been at war. Why no declaration? As you said, people have been taking bungs all the way through, even up until now. I think one of Putin's cronies has just been arrested in Estonia and thrown in jail. And she was a conservative supporter for embezzlement. And the stuff that Anonymous, the hacking organization, have been releasing. They hacked the Russian central bank about 3 weeks ago, and obviously it's all in Russian. It's being looked through. But one of the things they also found was about 1.5 trillion had been pumped into Cyprus. And of course, once it's in Cyprus, it's inside the EU. Once it's inside the EU, you can then pump it out to anywhere else inside the EU and use it for whatever means you want. And our laws as well do not protect us. And it's just, it's one of these things that I've been quite passionate about for about 2 to 3 years. And in part, this is why I've been doing YouTube, is because I saw this and went, I've never witnessed this in the UK government before in history. This level of corruption that's gone through to the point where they'll even ignore them attacking us through cyber warfare. But on a final note, they dropped chemical weapons across London and Salisbury. They've hit us twice with chemical weapons. And we just sit back. And the worst thing that out of all of that was our retaliation was to kick out some spies. I mean, what type of, they're just cowards. They're coward, like our government, I'll say this on air, they're cowards, they're incompetent, and they're corrupt. They are completely useless. I couldn't think of a C word for useless. Crap. And they're probably one of the worst in history.
Yeah, the Litvinenko and the Skripal attacks were basically acts of war, Alex. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
But we just sat there and took it like good little sheepdogs.
Yeah.
There was an article this morning on The Independent that said, we haven't been pumping weapons for 3 prime ministers. Cameron, May, and Boris did not pump weapons in until a year before the war. So what does that tell?
Yeah.
I mean, we keep saying we're taking the lead, and essentially Putin's got us by the hair.
By the gulags. Yeah.
Yeah, by the gulags. Yes.
I just want to read a super chat from Fearless Wolf. I have an image in my head of Boris just in a bathrobe, holding a hairbrush, singing into a mirror, "I will survive. I need help." Yes, you definitely need help. It was actually something we were talking about a little bit before the stream. Was what do people see in Boris Johnson? In particular, what do women see in Boris Johnson?
Oh, it's a bit like who's that female comedian that asked Paul Daniels' wife, was it Debbie? What's her one?
Yeah, Mrs.
Yeah, about multi-millionaire Paul Daniels that you find so attractive.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the elections? So the elections on the 5th of May. Any predictions? Anyone want to make a prediction? Maybe Rob, do you want to say something about that first?
Yeah, I'm really confused, Max, because everybody seems to be predicting just a complete landslide defeat of the Tories. But if you look at the opinion polls, I mean, Labour has still only got a 6% lead, the latest one I saw today. So I'm really interested in how that's going to play out. Interestingly enough,
I feel worried.
You think the polls are wrong, Marina?
I'm worried because I think the polls have been wrong in the past, and I feel like every time we come up to an election now, or a referendum, or a local election, I just feel like I'm getting into a car with a drunk driver. I just don't trust the electorate.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That sounds awful. I know that sounds awful, but I think I don't blame them. I just think the media, if you even look at the BBC now, and the fact that they can't mention the B word, they can't have the go at the government that they wanted to. They took out Brexit from a report. They actually got rid of that part of the report
on the BBC.
They can't be shown.
Yeah.
On the BBC. Oh, this is the BBC people. So I don't blame people, but I blame the media landscape that has sheltered them from the truth about this government.
So you agree, Marina? I don't think these polls, the local elections, are going to be a huge defeat for the Tories. I just don't see it, to be honest.
I hope there will be some upsets, but I don't think
Of
it's going to
course.
be a huge defeat we wish it would be.
Yeah.
I'm more optimistic.
Are you? Good.
Yeah, I'm just an optimistic person in general, but I'm more optimistic. So I'm looking at it and going, right, there was I think it was the Telegraph that came out and said that they think there's going to be an 800 loss.
Today.
Seat loss, but I think that's them looking ahead, and actually it's going to be like a 400 seat loss, and then they'll go, oh, it's a victory because we only lost 400 seats, not 800. See how good Boris is in the war. And then I think there's an element of, if you watch Question Time, they claim they've got Conservative voters on there, and they are very, very angry. And one of the things I've learned over life is when you've got a problem along these lines that you need to deal with and get rid of, the Tories are in a real horrible dilemma because they're having to slowly pull the plaster off. And I've always been a bit of an advocate of just rip it off and then you can move on to the next thing. And I don't think Partygate's going anywhere. And we see almost every day, like, more stuff coming out that causes hate towards the Tories. I mean, the Angela Marina thing, that's going to upset a lot of women who are just going to go, you know what, had enough of this. This is just crazy. A lot of men will back up as well.
Alex, how many people are not politically engaged? Don't underestimate that. Because people they'll think of one thing. Oh well, he's got Brexit done. No, that's it. That's enough to get them putting a tick in that box.
Yeah.
But also, not very kind of the Met Police, by the way, as well, to hold off and not share any more about the fines until after the local elections. So what the hell is going on there? That is corruption on a grand scale.
Yeah.
This nuts. Like, the Met Police have got so much to answer for. They've completely lost any credibility. They had to be legally challenged before they even investigated Partygate. I just think, what is this world we're living in?
That really confused me. This idea that the Met would say we're not going to publish any more fines until after the elections. What? Your job should be completely impartial here. You shouldn't be saying we're actually going to make a political decision. The election should have. It's like, they wouldn't say we're going to issue you a fine.
Nothing to
don't do it. Yeah, don't do it now because I have to go to work. Okay, well, we'll wait till after you finish your job. No, it's.
Oh, we'll wait till after you've gone for your job interview and after you've gone through all the checks. Then we'll give it. After you've got your job offer through the post. Perfect
analogy.
One other thing about the local elections might be a bellwether, who knows, but I don't know if you're aware of this, that the Electoral Commission, apparently, the Conservative Party have actually registered a separate political party with the Electoral Commission called the Local Conservative Party.
What is that about?
It's very interesting. Well, they're trying to draw a line, I think, between Partygate and all the national standards and saying, oh, the Local Conservatives is a different party now. We're looking at local issues during this election. And they've literally registered it as a separate political party with the Electoral Commission.
Did anyone see that? Did anyone see Paul Scully, the business minister in I think it was in Tesco, where he was it was a surgery. I think it was a pop-up surgery, but all of his material had the Conservative Party name removed. So he had just this green banner with his name on it, and he was like, "I'm here to take questions or whatever." So there seems to be this idea, we'll run candidates, but we won't mention Boris. Definitely, we won't mention Boris, and we won't mention that we're Conservatives. It's not exactly.
They don't put it on their Twitter, but a lot of them don't even put it in their Twitter bio that they're a Conservative Tory. It's ridiculous. Go on.
Sorry, Marina.
No, because I was speaking about the Electoral Commission, but slightly different subject, which is the vote that's going through the House of Lords next week, by the way, which I think should have probably been top of our agenda because it is so dangerous. This vote, if it's passed in the House of Lords, it will give control of the Electoral Commission. So this is the referee of our elections, which is independent currently. If it passes, it will give control of the Electoral Commission to government. This is literally like a football team appointing their own referee. The Electoral Commission, don't forget, were the people that investigated Vote Leave, found them guilty of breaking electoral law, fined them, and then referred them to the Met Police for further investigation. The Met Police, of course, dropped it. But ever since, the government have been trying to remove their teeth, and this is how they'll do it. And if they do, genuinely, I think that's it, our chance. We've lost our chance at democracy.
Hopefully the House of Lords do their job correctly. They have been coming through on a number of things.
Yes.
They have, thankfully, yeah, because there's only about 2 years left, so they can delay.
Don't you think it's nuts that we rely on an unelected house to protect us from the actions of the elected house?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wait till Brexiteers hear about that.
Oh, they're going nuts about that this morning on Twitter, being like, unelected representatives are influencing our... It's like, well, they sort of are unelected and they're sort of not. I mean, the Prime Minister selects them through committees, so a bunch of elected people elects them to a position of power. I wouldn't have it if I had the choice.
Same.
I would turn the House of Lords into proportional representation, but I've got reasons for that. But yeah, it is quite disturbing that we've actually had to get to that level, and we're having to explain to politicians why they should not curtail certain things like the right to vote, the right to protest, or sending refugees out of the country to be processed in another country. I mean,
to stay in that other country.
To be processed and stay in another country. That's a Nazi policy. They tried to do that with Madagascar.
And then they shelved it and then just decided to gas them at home instead.
Yeah. Did anyone hear Ian Dale's penny drop moment?
Yes, when he realised they weren't coming back, that's it. They have to stay, even if they're processed and found to, be eligible for seeking asylum. That's it. That's your life in Rwanda now. And by the way, as if you're desperate enough to get on a boat to come to the UK, you're not going to be desperate enough to get on a boat and leave Rwanda.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Guys, we have one more super chat, then we'll finish for today. This is from Roshin. What do you think will happen regarding the election in Northern Ireland and afterwards there? Maybe we can hit on it a bit quickly. Anyone want, maybe Alex, do you want to say something about Northern? So in Northern Ireland, for people who don't know, there's an assembly election taking place, not council elections. So there's the polls are predicting that Sinn Féin would become the biggest party and they would have the role of First Minister. But a number of unionist parties have said that they would refuse to go into government with Sinn Féin, so the assembly would not work. That would mean that Westminster would take over, but it's still not clear yet what's going to happen. What we could see is eventually a Sinn Féin First Minister in Northern Ireland and a Taoiseach or Prime Minister from Sinn Féin in the Republic of Ireland. So you would have Sinn Féin on both sides of the border, which could maybe push forward a United Ireland or at least a referendum on that. Alex, do you want to say something about that?
I think a referendum's inevitable, and it's just interesting that if Sinn Féin go into power, then the DUP won't power share. Whereas if it's in reverse, they sort of expect power sharing to take place. Shock. So it'll be interesting. I think inevitably you're going to have a referendum taking place on this, and I'm not going to call what the result will be in that. And even with this, I don't know enough to make a decision, but that's the rumbling that we've been hearing for quite a while now from the press, that it's going to be Sinn Féin that take control of Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. And I think that's going to be quite a power move if they intend to reunite the island. Rob, what do you think?
Sorry, me, yeah. I'm just speaking to my Northern Ireland friends. I mean, it seems to be, obviously the traditional thing, and we're into history here, Alex, more your area, but, the sort of the breakdown between the Republicans and the Unionists was traditionally in terms of Catholics and Protestants, but it seems to be breaking down. There seems to be a lot of the loyalist community now that were anti-Brexit. They don't seem adequately represented by their political parties, the DUP, and so on. And I see the research that says demographically that Northern Ireland is anyway moving towards being majority Catholic, majority Republican, but also there's a lot from the unionist community that are now actually becoming round in favour of a united Ireland to get back into the EU. So I think there will be a referendum, and at some point in the next few years, and I'm pretty damn sure we're going to see a united Ireland. There was
an interesting story in one of the Northern Ireland newspapers of there's been a surge for applications for Irish passports in unionist areas.
Right. Yeah.
So a pragmatic approach. Marina, do you want to say something about that? Sorry, Marina, I think you're muted. maybe okay.
Yeah, sorry, I've muted because I can hear my little boy crying.
Okay.
I'm not leading by the dad is out there, okay. But I'm not so well versed on the Irish thing. I think I'm so consumed in what goes on this land, but I do find it interesting that there's been this surge in the application of passports. I know for me, for example, my little boy's got a British passport and I'm very keen to get an Italian one, which is what I've got, just because of the freedoms that you get with it. But wasn't it Andrew Bridgen was the MP that was caught out live on radio? He actually thought that any sort of British national could just qualify for an Irish passport as well, which is just wonderful. These people are making the decisions that govern our lives.
Yes, they're not the most educated bunch when it comes to politics, are they?
No, which is wonderful, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we'll call it a day for that for today. Thanks so much to our guests Marina and Rob for turning up today and for your input. Wonderful, and thanks to my co-host Alex. Thanks to everyone who came on and on the chat, and thanks for all those super chats as well. Just remember to check out the description, the description of this video, where you find links to both Rob and Marina's channels and their social media. Just want to say thanks. It'd be great to have you guys back on again if you can.
Sure.
Rob, do you want to say something just before we go?
What, like goodbye or anything else you wanted to cover?
Yeah.
I'm just a bit disappointed we haven't got to Nadine Dorries and this explanation that is her dyslexia that made her talk about tennis pitches and what's it? She's a big fan of Cristiano Ronaldo since he scored a century at Twickenham in the Grand National, I think. Or something. Apparently, that's due to dyslexia, apparently. But the NHS calls dyslexia a disease that's described as a common learning difficulty that mainly causes problems with reading, writing, and spelling. But apparently, it makes you talk crap after looks like you've been drinking 10 gin and tonics as well, apparently.
I'm mildly dyslexic, so that really, really hacked me off when she used that. And I was like, that doesn't sound right.
No. Anyway,
there will always be more content on Nadine Dorries. She's very reliable for that.
Yes.
But yes, thank you, Max. Thank you, Alex, for having me. I do enjoy these sorts of sessions. For me, they are like therapy, and I can't have these conversations when I go out to dinner parties and go and meet my friends because they just find it boring as hell, which is part of the problem. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, guys. See you all. It'd be great to have you on again.
Thank you, Max.
And thanks to Alex. So have a great Sunday, guys, and a great Sunday to everyone on the stream. I'll see you next maybe not next Sunday, but we'll keep you updated on that. So thanks to our guests and thanks to Alex as well. Bye everyone.
Cheers. Bye.